Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we are going to be interviewing 4 of the final 8 finalists for the Season 1 championships in North America. I'm super excited to hear their perspectives on their preparation, their execution, and then how they were able to maintain their stamina throughout the tournament, and as well their thoughts on how the tournament can be improved and what they're going to do going forward. So enough of me blabbering. You don't want to hear from me in my terrible raspy voice right now. You want to hear from these Season 1 finalists. So let's turn it over to that scene here. I'm just going to mute myself here. Actually, no, I'm going to turn on my video here, and we're going to join here. So welcome Season 1 finalists. Everyone's super excited to hear from each of you. I'm going to let each of you introduce yourselves. So why don't you tell me your name, where you're from, and tell us about your Pokemon Go journey, especially how PvP has changed that. So let's start off with PeaceLoveHugs.
Hi, my name's Andrew. PeaceLoveHugs. I'm from Houston. I started day one with Pokemon Go back in 2016, and I enjoyed raiding and whatnot. But when PvP finally dropped, at the end of last year, beginning of this year, it really brought my energy back.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So let's move on to Choostemaster.
Hey, I'm Ari, Choostemaster. I play in New York, and I was playing pretty close to the beginning, but I was definitely like a little more casual about it. I would come back to it and go away from it. But I walk a lot for my job, so it just like kept drawing me back in. So I was like, well, I got all these kilometers, might as well use them. But yeah, and then similarly, like when PvP dropped, I just like went to check out a Boulder tournament, did a little better than expected, and got just like super sucked in again.
No, very nice, very nice. And now we have Matt. Matt, why don't you tell us about
I'm Matt. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I played the game back when it first launched. But the thing is, like here in Florida, since it launched out in the summer, it was like super hot, super dry. So it was just, not dry, super humid, and it was just so bad to play. So I kind of stopped playing for 2 years, and then I got back into it because I went to Disney, and so there's a lot of stops, and it was very fun. And then I heard PvP drop, and I play actually competitively in the actual Pokemon series game. So when PvP dropped, I'm like, oh, this is for sure my stuff. This is what I'm going to be good at. And so since then, I've participated in as many cups as possible. I'm even an admin in my area, so I make sure people are participating. If anyone has any questions, they come to me. I help team build for a lot of people. I have a lot of friends that are also into it, so I've been able to just PvP as much as possible.
All right.
And my community really supports that.
All right, perfect, great. And now we're gonna move on to datboiMuk.
What's going on, guys? My name's Trey, also known as datboiMuk. I play out of Richmond, Virginia, and originally I started playing the game day one, and it was pretty fun playing with friends, traveling DC and stuff. But that only lasted a couple months, and I quit for about 2 years. I ended up picking the game back up around the start of last summer, and I've been playing nonstop ever since. Originally, I was big into raids. But ever since PvP has dropped, that's pretty much taken all of my focus. Kind of like Matt, I've played Pokemon competitively for almost 10 years now. So once this dropped, I was extremely excited to get into it. And it's been a blast ever since. And especially now, I'm big into traveling and trying to get to as many cups as possible. So.
All right, perfect. Sounds like you guys all love PvP and definitely reinvigorated your game. And I think something that a lot of people are really interested, either they have a really great scene or not so great scene, but they want to hear from the very best players. Like any of you guys can jump in. Tell us about your local PvP scene.
Let's go first.
I guess I'll go first. Like I said before, I'm an admin in my community, so I really help out as many people as possible. We have most of our cups. We have a lot of first timers or people that only PvP casually or only PvP for the cup. So I'm there. I'm team building. I'm helping out. And some of them don't have Pokemon, have PvP Pokemon. I'm not gonna lie, but I always try my best to make sure that even their team is well rounded and answers as much the meta. I think I've lost to one of the people I've team built that played casually. Because I made sure that maybe they may not know how to play, but at least they have a team that can answer things. That at least they have a chance, and I always want that. I always try my best to make sure that everyone has a chance, no matter what.
All right, perfect. How about anyone else's local scene?
Yeah,
I guess. Go ahead.
So Richmond, Virginia actually is extremely competitive in the Pokemon Go PvP scene. We've had probably total about 50 unique players, but the top 20 players usually show up every single tournament. And honestly, anyone can take a game off anyone. Everyone's really competitive. The only thing I would hope to see in the future is maybe more competitors. I would love to see our PvP scene expand, especially with all the work we've been trying to put in.
Yeah, and what percentage of players in Richmond, Virginia do you feel like participate in PvP?
Oh, it's a small percentage, unfortunately. We have a very large Discord server coming in at almost 4,000 people. And like I said, about 50 unique people. So I think there's definitely room to grow our scene. And that's definitely something that we've been trying to focus on lately. Been getting bigger and better venues and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else like to contribute on their thoughts on around their local PvP scene?
Yeah, so the PvP scene in Houston, for our Discord, because it's such a large Discord, it actually encompasses not just Houston, but the greater Houston area. Before leaderboards dropped, I would sheet to give all of our players an ELO score, and we eclipsed over 200 players in Houston, but the tournaments were all scattered all over the place because of how far each of the smaller communities or the sub communities in Houston are. But then we in downtown Houston with some of the nearby communities to try to pull up the 30 to 50 player size tournaments. And in Chicago, we're going to be trying to look a way for us to live stream moving forward. Maybe not this month, but next month.
All right, perfect. So it sounds like you guys are making changes, trying to have people come together, have some live streaming so people get some exposure and in different ways of getting the community out there. All right.
Yeah, I'm also trying to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Choose.
No, yeah, I just wanted to say real quick. So here in my scene, my local community, shout out to New York Instinct. I got started with it mainly because like playing as Instinct is like playing on hard mode, and I needed raiding partners and stuff. Yeah. And then when I heard about Boulder, I just like sent them a message like, "Yo, we should like try to put one together." So we just started doing like at a local beer hall, like super casual and like very open and friendly. And like I always enjoy that like kids of like 12 and people of like 60 plus are all playing at the same tournament, which is always fun.
Yeah.
But then it was actually only at regionals when I started branching out into like the much more like the bigger, more intense Manhattan scene. And so like this week is when I'm going to my first local cup for that bigger scene. So I'll report back after.
Yeah,
that.
let me know how that is. That's great. So my next question is, and Matt, you kind of touched upon this. Like, what is your preparation? What was your preparation for this tournament, and was it different than other tournaments or other cups that you've prepared for? Whoever wants to tackle that.
So I have a good friend of mine that works with me. He also plays Pokemon Go, and we were trying to team build to answer as much. We were basically trying to answer the top 10 Pokemon, the 10 limited ones, and knowing that if my team can answer those 10 limited ones, it can answer basically almost everything else. And so we're just coming out of the things like out of the box thinking, and finally we settled out with the team that I used in the championship, which was Relicanth, Ludicolo, Skarmory, Medicham, Frostlass, and Blaziken. And so with that, it answered as many things as possible. What I did was I made that team. I sent it to my other friends that play competitively here in my area, and I said, guys, break my team, break it. So bring counters to them. try to destroy my team so like that I can see what works and what doesn't work. And even with them knowing my team and I'm not knowing what they have, I was able to win about 60 to 70% of the time. So I'm like, and then from there I figured out my core, which was the Relicanth and Ludicolo, and then substitute the third one for almost whatever else I wanted. And those two just answered everything. And they were able to take me here to basically top 4.
All right, great.
As the guy that lost to that, I can say that's a pretty good system that you use.
Absolutely. So I'm sure people are. So there's a lot of rumors on the internet, a lot of rumors on Reddit and on Discord. Did your Blaziken have Stone Edge?
I actually have one of the people that plays competitively. He has almost every single Legacy mon. He has Stone Edge Blaziken. My Blaziken actually had Blast Burn and Blaze Kick.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
So no Stone Edge.
Yeah. I think everyone would have freaked out if you would have. We were all waiting on the stream to see if you're going to bring your Blaziken in, just to see it. Right?
No, I couldn't. You know, it's funny. He actually got the Stone Edge Blaziken, and he traded a Wynaut, not a shiny Wynaut, a regular Wynaut for Stone Edge Blaziken. No. And I'm like, wow, how? And yeah, so he actually used that in Kingdom Cup.
Oh yeah, it would be a great surprise in Kingdom Cup. Stone Edge Altaria would be so nice. Really quickly before we move on to anyone else, tell us the mindset around bringing Relicanth, because I think that's a Pokemon that I'm sure not very many people thought of bringing.
So I brought Relicanth because I remember the game. It's a defensive tank, so I'm like, okay, here it should be a defensive tank too. I actually used it in Boulder Cup, and so a very quick story about it is that one of my friends was using a Relicanth against us, and he said that Relicanth is a Skarmory counter. I didn't believe that. So he used a Relicanth against me, and he beat my Skarmory. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Relicanth is a Skarmory counter. So I ended up using the Relicanth, and I traded it for one, and I ended up getting a really good Relicanth. It was like its IVs were almost PvP perfect IVs from the first time. So I'm like, that's awesome. So I ended up using Relicanth for the Skarmories, and then I saw that it just answers everything else, and it even takes an Earthquake. The only thing that basically kills it that I need to be scared of the Relicanth would be anything that has grass, because it even takes care of all the water types for the most part. Like I don't know if any of you guys used an Azumarill against my Relicanth, but that thing just takes like 4 play roughs, and it's like, I don't know what you're trying to do. Let me just Ancient Power and Aqua Tail.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, how about everyone else? Their preparation for the tournament and how it's different than other tournaments, if applicable.
My preparation was mostly the same. What changed was actually how many people were helping me out, because I already had a team that we put together on Discord with different players around the world, and actually one of them was another Worlds competitor. But basically, I would build a team, and then like MattSuar was doing, build a team and then try to break it. And what we'd be calling this is breaking the or advancing the meta. So like, I think this team's unbeatable, and then just beat it, and then try to have an answer to everything. So that way I have a fighting chance in every matchup and would have to try to out-knowledge my opponent.
How many battles do you think you've done with your team before you finally settled on what you had?
As far as battles with the team that I selected, or practice battles in total?
Oh, total battles for preparation for Season 1 Championship.
Maybe 50 or so. It was mostly putting things together in theory, and then just running the exact scenarios that I wanted to test things when I'm at a disadvantage.
All right, perfect. How about you other two? Choostemaster or datboiMuk?
Yeah, so I definitely. It's funny you asked like how many practice battles did you do, because I literally did not do like real scrims with a 6 until the day of the tournament.
Oh, wow,
Because
okay.
I had not settled on a 6 until that day. Like I had a couple friends that would help me with like I just wanted to see like what does a Lanoon look like in random things, or like but like there was no structured. It was all just free play to see how things interacted, and then I just had like spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets of team builds. Which was interesting because like it didn't give me the like line building practice, and I felt like I did get a little bit one dimensional when I was at the tournament, but it gave me a pretty good insight into like pretty much every team that I saw. I had built something near it, except for the one that I lost to with Relicanth and Blaziken and all of these things.
Yeah.
I think actually, Datboy, you can attest to this. I was at the table when we were waiting. I didn't know Relicanth's moves. Like
Yeah.
I had never played against a Relicanth before. I literally had no idea what I was going up against, and so yeah. So there are some pluses and minuses.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, how about
Yeah. So my preparation for the tournament, I was basically just with my good group of friends, usually about the top 5 people in our community. We're in a little Discord chat, and we use it to theory craft and all that good stuff. But we did a lot of theory crafting for Worlds, and we settled upon a Skarmory grass user Bastiodon comp, and it was working really, really well. Until my friends started using this comp that consisted of Charizard and Hypno, and that comp absolutely broke the team that I was planning on bringing. And I was actually getting nervous because of just how many matches I had lost specifically to that comp. It almost made me actually bring Hypno. But originally I had settled on the Skarmory Bastiodon comp because I had figured that Steel was going to be really good because everyone was talking about Charm, this new Fairy Fast move. So I'd figured that not only was, Fairy is going to get really good, but also poison types. So I'd figured that Steel was going to be really good. And then unfortunately, they didn't drop Charm quite in time. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just switch it up. So I was I honestly, if I'm being honest with you, I settled on my team the morning of GoFest. I settled on my team about 9 a.m. and I was like, all right, I really can't afford to make any more changes. And I did probably 15 scrim matches that morning and then played GoFest. And I don't want to say I winged it, but I definitely don't think I had as much time to practice my team as I probably should have. But the Pokemon I did pick, I was very, very comfortable with. So I didn't think it was going to be too big of an issue.
All right, perfect. That sounds
I just
great.
want to add one quick thing. Just like I feel like every single one of us in that like our process was talking about like our friends that were helping us. Like huge thank you to all of the people who weren't in Worlds that were helping us team build, that were helping us meta analyze. Like they would not have been possible on our own.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. The only reason why I wasn't scared of showing my team to my area is because I knew none of them were competing. So I'm like, you can all see what my secret is. Here you go, guys.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's important to have a really good support system and have people bounce ideas and yeah, that's great. So in your preparation process, what was the oddest Pokemon that you considered bringing or did bring, as some of you guys have, or considered preparing for that you were scared if they brought this really off meta pick, that you had something in the back of your mind to come prepare for it? Whoever wants to.
Yeah, I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was looking at, originally I was trying to replace Skarmory because he seemed replaceable as far as flying types goes. So I was looking at picks like Gliscor because I had seen that he was probably the only flying type that could take on Bastiodon with EQ. So that was definitely high up on my list, as well as Hypno. I honestly figured that Bastiodon was going to be a little bit more prevalent than he was in the Cup. I guess I had guessed wrong, unfortunately. But yeah, Gliscor and things like Golbat were definitely on my list. But yeah, those would probably be the weirdest picks.
Yeah, just trying to look for substitutes for so you can pick something else from the restricted. Great. Anyone else?
There was a time where I was considering a Dustox or a Venomoth. I knew in order to fairly far into the tournament that it would take a decent amount of skill and also a not so small amount of luck as well. So I figured having access to a Silverwind or something like that to kind of stack the deck to give me more outs.
What would you have
Does it work?
replaced on your team to bring in Venomoth or Dustox?
Well, that I was considering it before in an earlier team composition. It wouldn't have fit in this current team comp.
Okay, yeah, that definitely would have. You would have been a fan favorite for Zionic and Trainer Tips if you brought in Dustox because they're definitely huge fans of it. So, okay, great.
It's one of my few perfect Pokemon. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, how about Choostemaster or Matt? Pokemon that you consider or brought, or ones that you were considering preparing for?
They're not like super off meta picks. Like I think actually in the finals there was one of each on either team, but I really wanted to make a team comp with Lanoon and Gallade, so that I had like split my grass coverage in two and they cover each other. And I just thought that I was going to be so hard to game plan against, or you just have to run away from the grass. But I just couldn't make it work because Vigo was too much of a problem.
Yeah,
like Gallade can't take him, so that they don't really cover each other anymore. And so I think half of my spreadsheets were just trying to find a way around that problem that was just not worth it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, I think the weirdest pick was the Relicanth because no one knows how to prepare for it. Even though it's kind of one-dimensional in a way because it just has its two stab types.
Yeah.
But it's just Ancient Power, that 10% chance of just the +2/+2, and Aqua Tail just being able to spam. Yeah. I knew that I wanted to use Relicanth, and then I dropped 75 rare candies and 75,000 dust on that second move, and I'm like, I need to 100% bring this no matter what. It's an expensive Pokemon. I'm bringing this, and then I ended up trying to figure out. I needed a Razor Leaf user because I knew that 90% of the people were going to bring in a Azumarill. Yeah. And I might be a little bit right with my prediction. I don't know if it was 90%, but I know it was like easily 60, 70% of the people brought in a Azumarill. So I needed something that would answer that. And I need a Razor Leaf user. And I saw most of my Razor Leaf users, and they were all just kind of common Pokemon. So I'm like, no one's really thinking about Ludicolo. It answers water types. It answers electric types in a way. So I'm like, might as well bring Ludicolo. And then from there, everything else just kind of revolved around those two because they just answered each other's weaknesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I think it was in the knockout stage before the finals where actually I saw a couple things when I saw the Relicanth that you were using. And I saw you got a boost. And then basically that Relicanth became almost invincible, right? And then as well, I thought I saw something that I never thought I would see in Season 1 Championship. I saw a Ludicolo mirror match to end the third match of your. Oh, obviously you had a huge HP advantage, but I'm like, wow. If you would have, if I have all the scenarios I would have encountered, definitely not a Ludicolo mirror match.
Yeah, he took me by surprise. I'm like, someone else is using Ludicolo. Whoa! So there, I'm like, he has to bring Razor Leaf. So I'm like, okay, the way Ludicolo mirror matches wins, it doesn't even matter who gets charging priority. It's who has less HP.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was my thing, is that I had to make sure that no matter what, if it comes down to a mirror match again, my Ludicolo needs to be at least 70% healthy, so you can take an Ice Beam and then be able to kill it with Razor Leaf.
Yeah, exactly. So I saw that, and those Razor Leafs are deadly against Azumarill. And I think it was actually around 90%. I think the finalists, all but one person brought Azumarill as the restricted pick. I think you were the one that didn't bring Azumarill for your restricted pick. And then in the broader 96, I think virtually everyone else brought Azumarill. So. I
don't know if I saw a group of 8 with 2 that didn't have a Azumarill. I think it was 7 or 8 in every single group, pretty much.
Yeah, it was. It's a difficult Pokemon to replace, but certainly one, if you can account for it, can be definitely stacked in your favor. So any changes that you would, after you've experienced the tournament, your wins and losses, any changes that you would make to your team, any surprises that you received from your competitors, whether you won or lost against them?
Process. I 100% would change process. I loved her because I was thinking a little bit more. I thought a couple more people would bring Metacham or some type of fighting, but it's just she's spammy. She's able to get avalanches off like super fast, but she's a little frail, and it kind of cost me the game against Hugs, even though I was spamming my avalanche, but
What would you have brought?
it was really ready. I honestly don't know. Like the whole entire point of that was to have a second answer to grass types, but I really don't know.
That's actually why I ended up cutting Frostlass, because I was trying to build an Azulus comp that had Frostlass as part of the Frostlass with Lantern or something like that. But it just it doesn't beat a lot of the Razor Leafers, and so it just it doesn't even fulfill what I wanted it to be as a nice type, and that's why I just ended up cutting leaving it by the wayside.
That makes sense. How about you? Everyone else? What would you change, or maybe you wouldn't change as well, or any surprises that you saw from your competitors? You're like, oh, that's a really interesting pick or team comp.
Honestly,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say so originally day one the day before the tournament I cut Muck off my team, and looking back, I think I would have really appreciated Muck on my team. The Vigoroth was kind of not fun to play against, if I'm being completely honest with you. Those body slams come off way too quickly, and even when I would switch in, something like my Victory Bell to resist the counter, that body slam was doing 60% of Victory Bell's HP, and it just, I think if I had Muck, I think I would have fared a lot better, because that Thunder Punch chunks both Azu and Skarmory. Not to mention, I think it would have been a nice little touch, kind of like D-Master Lance, how he brought Dragonite. I think it would have been a nice touch.
yeah, no, absolutely.
The biggest surprise for me was Matt's Ludicolo. I luckily had some level of experience with Relicanth because one of my teammates tried using it in his regional. So I had an entire month of practice against it.
Yeah, makes sense.
The one thing I'd say the biggest surprise for me was the unrestricted picks were a lot more off meta than I expected. I thought that the unrestricted picks were going to be pretty condensed into what filled the replacement roles best.
Yeah.
And then the restricted picks, I expected a lot of anti-meta, people picking things to beat the restricteds that were most common, but everybody had Azumarill, and there was barely any Metacham, barely any grass types, but the restricteds were way more predictable than I thought they would be. And it was the unrestricteds where everyone branched out into weird ways. And that was the inverse of what I expected going into this, definitely.
For sure. I think, we definitely saw, a lot of people pick Azumarill and Skarmory as their restricted picks. Then not a lot of diversity amongst the restricted picks, then crazy amount of diversity and crazy amount of different Pokemon used in different team composition, which makes sense when you're battling with the best. They're certainly going to try to be one step ahead of their opponent. So my next question is, obviously, you guys, there was the group of 8, and each of you advanced to the group of 8. Some of you to the pre-final finalists knockout stages, and some of you directly to the finalists. Did you or would you make any changes in between the portions of your tournament? Either retrospectively looking back at it, would you have made any changes, or would you have, or did you stick with it and you were happy with what you were stuck with?
Yeah, so personally, I don't know how many people were making changes, but I ended up changing at least one Pokemon every single round. So originally I had Haunter in my team of 6 for the group stage, and then I figured that it was kind of redundant. My fighting counter was more Azumarill and Skarmory, so I figured that I didn't really need the Haunter anymore. So I dropped it in favor of Charizard for the knockout stage because I had a lot of success with the triple water comp in my 2 of my group stage matches. So I wanted that Charizard to maybe dissuade people from taking their grass type because that's pretty much the only counter to the triple water comp. So I brought Charizard in hopes that I could use it as some sort of scarecrow against the grass types. Didn't pan out, still faced Ivysaur. So I was like, all right, no big deal. I didn't even use Charizard. So going into the top 8, I changed Charizard for Umbreon because I had figured that I was going to see a few more ghost types. I had honestly anticipated like a Frostlass or even like maybe a Haunter or something like that, but I didn't see any of that. But I think if I could do the top 8 over again, I probably would have used my Umbreon, considering there was like almost no fighters. I barely saw any fighting type.
Yeah. And just one note, when I saw your knockout stage where you hit that Hydro Pump on that Wish Cache, that was like, I think everyone around the table didn't think you had enough energy to get off a Hydro Pump.
Oh my goodness.
And
Everyone was
shocked. And then shielding a Mud Bomb when using a Lantern is something that I don't think very many people would have ever considered doing.
That play was pretty much do or die for me. When I sent out Skarmory in hopes that he was going to lead Ivysaur and saw a Probopass, I was like, all right, I definitely need a game plan here. So I switched Lantern immediately in hopes that he would bring in his Wish Cache because I had figured that if I had a little bit of stored energy, I could fire off a Hydro Pump, and that play was do or die. If I get the Hydro Pump off, I can pretty much win. If he shields it, I get a little bit of a shield advantage. But that was pretty much, I mean, the whole game pretty much centered around that play, pretty much.
I think when everyone was looking around and saw that Probopass versus Skarmory, and then knowing the rest of the team comp, they're like, it's over, right? They saw the switch. He hesitated slightly on the switch to Wish Cache because he probably wasn't necessarily sure what you were gonna bring to counter Probopass, and then that Hydro Pump was it was the play of the knockout stage for sure. So
it felt so good.
I just finished my match and then I heard about that. I'm like, what's going on? Why is everyone like so hyped? And then I hear, I'm like, what's going on? I'm here still in the middle of tapping. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, whatever, let me focus on my thing. And then they told me the Hydro Pump landed on the Wish Cache and this and that and lead at disadvantage. I'm like, wow. And he pulled it through. I'm like, all right, that's a good competitor right there.
Yeah, exactly. And calling the switch too, like, because he was waiting at the switch clock, like he purposely didn't feed down the Lantern, then wait down the switch clock, and then you guys both switched at the same time. And I was like, oh, it's over. It's GG's from here. That was nuts. But really, yeah. So I saw some amazing matches throughout the tournament. I wish we had captured the matches throughout each of the stages, which goes on to my next point is, what did you think of the overall tournament structure? You know, the groups of 8, the preliminary knockout stages, the final 8, and what would you change and what would you keep? So I'll let any of you guys take it from there.
I really enjoyed it. I actually liked I liked how they set it up. I really, the experience was amazing. The only thing that I didn't like was that we were supposed to start the final 8, I think, at 9:30, or the final 4 at 9:30, and we took a little too long, and because of that, some of us kind of got screwed up because of the time limitation. And also that iPhone, the iPhone 6, I actually have one here at home. It's not a good, not a good phone to play with. So, and I kept seeing the lag, and I saw it on the live stream, and I even had it in my game, which really did not help. And that's basically it. Just honestly change the iPhones. Instead of iPhone 6 is like another iPhone.
I told them,
a little bit more modern.
I told the Selfrina if they're not willing to upgrade the iPhones, I will buy them all iPhones, right? So just because it was painful to watch, and painful to comment and see matches.
Yeah, my match was like that first time against Hugs. I don't know, Hugs, if you ever saw the VOD of it, but it was just, and I think you even experienced it on your end. It was just so laggy, and I'm like, this cannot be the Wi-Fi, because I was on my phone with LTE, and there's like 100 other people at least minimum using the cell tower. And I was experiencing little to no lag in all my PvP games. So I'm like, this cannot be the Wi-Fi. We have like a private Wi-Fi. This can't be it. It has to be the phone. And then, yeah, it was the phone. The phone was killer.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else thoughts on the overall tournament structure? Any of the components?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I definitely, like, going into this tournament, I didn't expect to get out of the group stage necessarily. Like, I was hoping, but I definitely didn't, like, I knew it was a long shot. And so going into the tournament, I just remember thinking, like, I could lose my first match and, like, I already know my day's over. And so that was, like, a pretty, like, defeating feeling going into it or whatever. And then after the fact, with, you know, obviously clearly no bias whatsoever, I felt afterwards, I was like, oh, like, the higher variance was kind of cool. Like, it gives it a little more unpredictability. You get some, like, you know, like you get the Cinderella stories, like March Madness style, of like people who maybe don't normally have a shot but have a good day. And so, like, I still don't really know how I feel about it, if it was a positive or a negative, but I do think, I don't know, because we were talking about it a little bit before the stream also, and there's a lot of conflicting aspects that I could see the benefits and the problems with. And then there's the whole other aspect that's kind of a can of worms of, like, whether it should have been ranked in any way. But
yeah, what do you guys think? Should it have been ranked or not ranked?
That's a good question. I mean, it's easy to say now, looking back, that I kind of wish it would have been ranked. You know,
yeah, right.
Getting out of groups with 2 aces, you know, I was, shoot, this would have done great for my rank. But I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of wouldn't have been fair, I think, to everyone else who didn't get the shot to play at that tournament, because a lot of people would have been shooting up very high in the ranks, especially I think for the people who maybe could have played at Worlds but didn't get the chance to go to Chicago. I guess it's kind of just better that it didn't end up being a ranked tournament, but I probably wouldn't have complained if it was a ranked tournament personally, if I'm being honest with you. But as far as the tournament structure goes overall, I actually really enjoyed going from the groups to the knockouts, top 8, yada yada. I would say the only change I would make personally maybe would be to have all that infrastructure built into sylph.gg, so that, you know, it's handled by the website, not by trying to make a couple extra tournaments and having to conclude the tournaments and stuff.
And also so that people could track it when they were watching. Like, I had so many friends that were asking me, like, what the heck is going on right now? Like,
for sure. I think that's a big part of the experience. Like, obviously, your communities are supporting you, right? Your friends from all over the world, right? That helped you prepare, want to see how you progress and are curious and all that stuff. So I think that's fair feedback for them.
Yeah, all my group chats through the Telegram, my group chat, my Discord server, they're all asking, "What's the link? What's the link? Let's see." And I'm like, "There's no link. There's nothing to see. You just have to, you know, wait and hope for the best."
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
So,
I'm gonna go, I guess, against the grain a little bit here, but I understand there were time constraints, and that's probably why they did the group stage the way they did it. But I very much would have preferred if they actually had an actual Swiss tournament, and then we go into a top cut. That way we don't have to rely on the global rankings as tiebreakers so much.
Yeah,
that's actually how I thought. Sorry, King.
No, go ahead.
That's actually how I thought they were going to play it, was all 96 or 98 competitors, everyone come in, and then we're all going to have whatever rounds it will be. It will be like, I think 8 rounds? No.
7 rounds. Seven
rounds, yeah. So it'll be 7 rounds, and that's what I thought it was going to be, and then the top 8 from there would go, or the top 12 or however they wanted to do would go on, and then from there, it would just keep, you know, minimalizing, like from the top 8, single elimination, let's see who goes, and then top 4 single elimination, let's see who goes, and then from there, that's how I thought it was going to play out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What are your guys' thoughts? Because originally for the finalists, they were going to have a best of 5, but obviously it turned out to be a big time constraint, so we switched to best of 3. I even announced it that we were like, I think it was D Master Lance versus was against you, Andrew. I can't remember whoever he was going.
I didn't play D Master Lance.
Okay, whoever played D Master Lance, I was like, okay, D Master Lance lost his first 2 matches. I'm like, how is he going to adjust for the best of 5? Then they told us a few seconds later that it was actually the best of 3 and the match was over. But what are your thoughts on if they did make it a best of 5 as opposed to a best of 3?
Yeah, that would have been intense. I would have enjoyed it, but it would have been intense.
Yeah, I mean, the marathon aspect would have gotten even stronger.
Yeah.
Hey, I was ready to... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I thought it would have been exciting to have the 5 because at a certain point, then we start playing with the. I would start my approach differently instead of trying to like make sure I for sure win game 1. Like I make sure I'm hiding information if I can, and looking at it as it happens to be 5 battles, but it's like as long as I score 3 points, I win, type of thing.
Yeah, I was in the same boat as you. I kind of, when I went into the tournament or into the match thinking it was a best of 5, I was trying to keep secrets as well. I think a best of 5 kind of plays out a little bit different than a best of 3. So I was a little bit confused after the 3rd game when they told me it was a best of 3. I was like, oh, like I kind of wish I was told that a little bit earlier, but not a big deal. It still had a great time. I had an incredible match against Smoosha. He did an incredible job, but I think just a little bit more communication. Me and Dude both had headphones on, so we both came out of the match and we were ready to play the next one. And then they tapped us on the shoulder, like, "All right, you guys are done." And we were both just a little bit confused right after that.
Yeah. Certainly, a lot of changes happened because of changes in how the setup and how much it was delayed. What did you think of like this getting nitty gritty, like all sitting at one table? If they do continue down with the group of 8, you think it was a good format, good structure?
Well, it's interesting because it gets into because they didn't put it on the screens because we would have had issues with we would have been able to see the information or whatever. So it gets into, do you want the spectators to see the people or do you want them to see the battle? Should we have been in a different room? I don't know, because at the same time, regionals and this was the first time I've ever had battles where there were 100 people looking over your shoulder that cheer when you just barely get that charge move.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, but as a competitor, that was pretty cool. As a spectator, I probably would have rather actually seen what was happening.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely in the future, have the competitors in one room and then have the spectators, minus a few of them, in another room where they see on screens, where you guys have no chance of seeing it. Definitely would have enhanced the viewing experience and all the cheers and oohs and ahs. Definitely would have. What do you guys think of of it being there's so many people watching and anticipating and watching you guys basically sit for 2 hours? How did you feel about that?
The center of attention for 2 hours was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I was walking around. Pretty much everyone knew who I was. It was pretty cool. I actually liked battling with the people around us. Maybe it was because the battle I did in the knockout stage with the last match I had where I got off that hydro pump and everyone was cheering. That was an absolutely amazing feeling. But I think, in the future, I think it would be better maybe to separate just so that the viewing experience can be upgraded. Yeah.
It is. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, that was kind of what I was saying. That hydro pump, you could tell people about that, and, they'll not really get it. But in that moment, when you hear everyone cheer, you know that they got how good that felt for you. So, that's part of what's really, I don't know, it feels special that you don't get at any other kind of tournament.
Yeah,
I mean, they could have done it like how Pokemon does it, the official Pokemon Company does it, where there's, a stage, so people can still see, there's, screens not behind the people exactly, but to their right, a little bit away from them, so they can't see the information.
Yeah.
But like all the people are sitting in an area and they're watching the TV and they're seeing what's going on. But the two competitors don't see what's going on and don't really hear because they also have headphones on. Maybe they might hear some of the cheers, but for the most part, they have the headphones on, so they're not really paying attention, but they're still kind of like the center of attention, and people can still see it. That's how I think we should do it next time. Like have like more of a stadium kind of thing going.
Yeah, no.
Which
Yeah.
I know where we were, we couldn't really do that, but maybe like if this comes a lot better and a lot more people can support it, maybe we can have a little bit more of like a stadium kind of feel to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of big steps that are going to be taken in the future. So it's really great. Any other feedback on the overall tournament structure, changes, things you would keep or change?
Oh, with the well, I guess part with the lag with some of the button on a lot of the judges calling for restart a lot, because I know even in the later stage when I was watching some of the other semis, there were things that were already in motion, or like both players lagged at the same time and then unlagged around the same, or pretty much at the same time. In normal tournaments, we've just continued to play when we see that.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's a tough call for them because I think the judges were like independently looking on each phone, and when they saw lag, they didn't. When they in the normal course of gameplay, I think I even called it on one of my streams. I'm like, they probably should have just played it out, because I think there was one point where someone was doing a charge move, and it was clearly just lagging on both phones. I'm like, just play it out and see if there's actually lag once the charge move is executed. So certainly, I think there's some improvements that could be made. I think they tried to make it as fair as possible, and they were just being hypersensitive because there was so much lag, and they wanted it to be as fair as possible. Okay, great. So that you guys provide a lot of really great feedback around the tournament structure. Matt, you talked about how the main series does it with the stage and whatnot. What do you guys think of the viability of making Pokemon Go PvP and esport? Like, what are the limits? What are some comparable games and structures? Or do you think that this is just not the right game or structure to make this happen?
I think it could happen for sure. I think Pokemon Go could definitely become an esport, but I think it's going to require more from Niantic. I think that Niantic might need to work with maybe some of the top brains in PvP just to iron out some of the kinks that there are. Like in the current system, it's very, rock, paper, scissors feeling. And I think that there's a couple things that Niantic could do to at least give Pokemon Go PvP something that doesn't feel so centered around the lead, because that is extremely important in Pokemon Go. But I think Sylph Road is doing an incredible job with what they're doing, and I think maybe if Niantic and Sylph Road team up a little bit better, I think that Pokemon Go could definitely become an esport. It's just maybe a little more organization and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
My biggest concern with PvP as it is now, minute timer for switches. That's just
way too long.
In the actual Pokemon game, it's switches on switches on switches on switches on switches. And even though it might look a little repetitive, a little boring, it's just you have to keep going like that so you can outsmart your opponent. At some point, someone's going to make the wrong switch, and you're going to have an advantage on that wrong switch, and you're going to be able to do that. So I think maybe instead of a minute to 30 seconds on the timer, and you'll see that the game will go back even faster because people are going to be like, oh, I have my 30 seconds, let me switch. Oh, I have my 30 seconds, let me switch. Yeah. And so you also get into that routine how we have now, where I think we're all used to that 1 minute timer, so we all kind of know when to switch out, when not to switch out. But I feel like 30 seconds would just make the game, instead of like a 3-minute battle, maybe it will change to a 2-minute battle. And I think, like, even though we all want our battles to be longer, I feel like if it's a 2-minute battle instead of 3 minutes, we can get into more battles. And more people will be want to join because they're like, oh, I'm not going to be here for 3 hours. I'm actually going to be here for 2 hours. And so you're going to have more people join. Like, that's the problem in our community, is that our tournaments tend to last 3-4 hours and people cannot commit to that. But if you change the timer, the switch timer, people are going to go by with the battles even faster. and I feel like that would change the game like tremendously.
For sure. I think switching switch timer could make a really big difference, especially even from a strategic gameplay perspective, and make the leads not necessarily as important because getting switch locked is not as painful.
Yeah, you could try and like ride out like with your tanky enough thing, even if they have a hard counter, just ride out the 30 seconds with your shields or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, like one of my friends says, "Oh, I see a bad lead. Like I have a bad lead and they have a good lead. I'm staying my Pokemon. I have to keep it because I don't want to give them the switch advantage. So I need to keep it." I'm like, that sucks. You're trading one Pokemon because you have that 1 minute timer. That just makes so much of a difference. And I saw that like against our match Hugs. I saw my Ludicolo against the Toxicroak. I'm like, I can't switch. I switch, I lose. I have a really high, well, not that I lose, but I have a really high chance of losing. And especially here where I'm sure all of us will take advantage of that switch lead. We will all be like, oh, they switch first? Oh, that's it. Game is locked. I won. I'm switching to my counter. There you go. This one gets rid of that one. I have enough energy. I'm going to fire off 3-4 charge moves before they kill me. And that's it. That's game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, well, with the leads, I do know that they affected a lot. And that's why, like, when I said I was practicing, a lot of the scenarios I practice when I'm behind with the lead and forced to switch out, and I kind of try to build my team comps around, like, what happens if I lose the lead, and just to help with that win probability. But you're right about the leads being tough to overcome.
And
For sure.
do you think PvP for Pokemon Go is esports-able, if that's a phrase?
Yes, with more work and just getting the content out there and streamlining our live streams with more practice.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a lot of experience with other, like I've never played another Pokemon game. I've never been a huge follower of any esports. So like, I don't know if this is true, but my gut is like, is it not visually strong enough? Like literally just watching the gameplay, unless you're already really into it. I just feel like it's hard to grab people because it's just not as like visually intense as like, you know, a first person shooter or I don't know. But like I could be wrong about that. Like I kind of want to ask you guys who probably have more experience in this realm.
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. It definitely isn't something that is, you know, super flashy on screen, but I think that it could work as an esport, but it is something that I think that's a good point. I think it does need a little more oomph to be visually appealing to people that are outside of the Pokemon Go community, that just like Pokemon and want to watch maybe, you know, some competitive Pokemon matches. I think that if there was, you know, it was a little bit ironed out, a little more flashy, I think it could definitely grab some attention and get some attention from people outside of the Pokemon Go community.
For sure. I think there's a lot of AR play that Niantic is they're looking to invest on their end, and it would be amazing to see. I'm sure some of you guys have seen Trainer Tips video around how he envisioned how PvP and Pokemon could be in the future. Imagine, you know, walking into the O2 Arena and you see a Charizard fly down and you see people like calling out their Pokemon and the different charge moves, and seeing it in a augmented reality perspective would definitely give it that visual perspective. But we also see in other games, if you watch any like VGC, it doesn't look flashy, right? Like it's like turn-based, right? And but I think people are very much invested, and the streams look really great and the videos look really great. It's not necessarily like, you know, League of Legends type perspective. So
I mean, think of golf too. Like, just people are just interested in watching the best at. And I mean, I do like that in Pogo we've got a little bit more faster pace than the turn based, and I was surprised. Like now looking back, I'm surprised that I'm actually saying it has a better framework than the traditional games as far as making it an esport. Because instead of waiting for everyone to make turns, we have to make our decisions on the spot.
Yeah. Everything is a lot more, what's this called?
real time.
There's a lot more improv. There's a lot more improv in ours. in Pogo instead of like turn based where you're like, okay, so next turn I lost this, okay, but next turn I get to do this, and I get to do this and that. Like us, we're just like, well, we need to come up with that, and we're like here we're tapping, and then we're also opening up the switch menu because we're like, okay, I need to switch like immediately, but I also want to wait for my charge move to be filled up. So when I do switch out, when this comes back in, its charge move is ready. So there's like a lot more like improv for us. There's a lot more. I guess it just looks a lot faster for us, and I do feel like this game is a lot more fast paced than the streamlined Pokemon, than the main game Pokemon.
For sure, and I think we definitely build storylines and narratives amongst top players like yourselves, and we can. I think we see it. Like, I'm sure people that were your biggest local enemy in your local community were probably cheering you on, right? So like, building up these storylines or narratives, or even I experienced this personally. Like, there's lots of people in Toronto that never watched basketball before, but as soon as the Toronto Raptors made it to the finals and they won, now there's like millions of people there. I've never watched a basketball game in their life, and they swear that they're like the biggest fans ever, right? So I think certainly. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, certainly, I think building out storylines and having your names out there and people cheering you on, or if they see you next year, they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing datboiMuk last year, right? And I know he's really good. He made it all the way this far, and there's PeaceLoveHugs, et cetera, right? And building out that, having people a reason to watch. Obviously, the gameplay has to look nice and look good. But I think also like people get around people, which I think is gonna be really important.
My biggest rival, technically my biggest rival in terms of community wise, it was actually XO, which made up in the top 4 with me. So that was technically our rival in terms of like when I got back home and when I was looking through our group chats there, everyone's like, oh no, Matt against XO at some point, or like, oh, XO is still up there, Matt is still up there. Oh, this is gonna be an intense battle if we ever did end up getting to battle. I know that would have made both of our communities just lose their minds with like, oh man, Matt, would it be Matt or would it be XO at this point? Yeah. Who is the better PvPer of our area? But that was fun.
Yeah, so
I really enjoyed it.
Certainly, people, you can do whatever you want, but people will get behind you if we can build that out. And then the one last question, I think there's a lot of questions that a lot of people have, right? So they might have tuned into the live stream or checked it out or watching this video, and they might be hesitant on getting into the competitive scene for PvP. So what are some advice that you have for people that haven't traditionally or historically been competitive but want to get into the scene?
So I think like the biggest thing for me, definitely, and I feel like I may be coming from a slightly different place because, like I mentioned, like I never played any of the other Pokemon games, so like I was at a big knowledge deficit getting into this. And I think like for me personally, it was Go Stadium. It was like finding communities where just like people love theory crafting, people are constantly talking about that stuff, and just like consume all of it. And like that was how I got up into it. And then even the stuff that you read that is wrong, when you read all the different ones, like you start understanding, well, like this is what this guy got right about that. This is what this guy got right. And so like it just makes the picture much more complete when you're reading 80 different sources of information instead of just your local group or just your friends that you always play with or just that one subreddit or just whatever it is.
So Go Stadium Discord, shout out to them. Really, really amazing place to obtain a lot of resources.
Definitely.
And if you want to talk PvP, you can talk PvP all night there. So certainly that's good advice. What other advice do you guys have for those trying to get into PvP competitive scene?
I would say that.
Or go ahead, Muck.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely if you want to be competitive Pokemon Go, and you're not really sure what you should be doing, like you said, definitely find communities where there's a lot of good information, but also feel like it's important to not second guess yourself when you go to these tournaments and trust your gut, because I mean at the end of the day, we're playing Pokemon, we're all just out there having fun, and I think that it isn't really something that people should stress too hard over, especially their local tournaments. I mean, at least half of the people are out there just going to have fun, So I think if you can go out there and just put a smile on your face, I think it's going to help out a whole bunch.
Yeah, so when you're starting out, just go there, have fun, be part of the experience, and then that will help you along with your journey. I think it's excellent advice. Any other?
I think the first obvious step would be to just go out there and sign up for a tournament and compete, and then to Huck was saying, just go out there. Don't worry about the end result the first time. Just go out there, try to learn, record your matches, and just review them if you're really wanting to become competitive and consume all the resources that everyone else is talking about.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice around recording your matches and then going back on and figuring out like what you can do better, or sit down with your friend that is a little bit more into the scene and figure out what changes you could make or different decisions that you can make. And I think that's a really important part of getting better, is to look back at how you performed in the past.
Also, just that like losing teaches more than winning a lot of times. So don't be afraid of losing your scrims and stuff. Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no. It's like, just make friends. Just have friends in your community. People that are not into it. People that are into it. So because even the people that aren't into it, I've learned that they may not seem into it because they don't know all the technicalities like we do. Like, oh, we know when to switch. We know when to shield. We know how to shield bait. And all these other, like, I guess, advanced tactics that we've learned. But we learned that through time. We're trying to learn how to PvP around the same time. So I feel like, you don't have to worry about all these advanced mechanics. You can still learn how to play. And just all those things that we've learned through practice. And I feel like that's the biggest thing, is practice. Make friends and practice.
Okay, great. So you guys talked a lot about your local communities and people that you practice with. Why don't we end this segment by, if you guys want to give like 10 seconds to think about who you want to shout out that helped you along the way for Season 1 Championship. No pressure. If you forget somebody, I'm sure they won't be upset. So just give it a moment. And I really appreciate all the insights that you guys have provided. I certainly have learned a lot. And as well, thank you for allowing me to witness all the great battles. So why don't we start off with PeaceLoveHugs. I know in one of your fun facts, you talked about the Houston community is the reason why you were able to get to Season 1 Championship. So why don't you tell us some of the shout-outs that you want to give?
I'd like to shout out Leah Biker for and the rest of the guys in the and Brady and Van and Kriga, Hooplehead, and the rest of the guys that jumped into the private server that they created for me to Theorycraft, and also helping me get to Chicago. And also to shout out to my team Carp Squad, training together since Boulder. Started building friendships in Boulder, and then just keeping each other at the top or near the top of our local communities. And I apologize if I forget anyone.
I'm sure. All right, let's go to Choostemaster. Who do you want to shout out? New York is a big place, so.
Well, I mean, to be honest, most of my like PvP scene and everything is like I live on Go Stadium whenever it's like a week or two before the thing. So like a lot of the credit goes there, but and too many individuals to name. Like I don't want to leave some people out, but the one that I do want to give a shout out to is actually Valorash, because like I mentioned, the only scrimmaging I did was when I was killing time at the venue with him like 2 hours before the thing. And like that got me like more comfortable. Like, okay, I can actually do this. Like, just ride with what you got. So those scrims helped calm my nerves a lot.
It was a funny story where Mason Valorash was like, "Oh, I'll scrim against you, and I'm sure we'll play each other." And then you guys are in the final, the same group of 8, and then the final match, and that was like a super close match. That was a really nice play to take him out in that third match. So I think that's very courteous of you to shout him out. So Matt, who do you want to shout out?
I also have a lot of people. I want to shout out my PvP chat. They were amazing. They were the ones that were helping destroy my team as I was putting that. I do want to give thanks to William. He's the one that helped me out a lot with building my team. He's the one that actually gave me the idea to use Relicant and Ludicolo. Robert, Annette, so many people. Ariel, there's just so many people that those are the people that really helped out with my team. And they're the ones that were like, whenever I said, hey, can we battle? And they were the first 4 people to be like, hey, let's battle. I'm going to break your team. Let's go. So so many people to name though. So many people. Don't feel bad if I left you out. It's just so many people, so many names.
Absolutely. Trey, how about you?
Yeah, like these guys said, so many people have helped me along this journey. But the 2 guys that helped me pretty much more than anyone preparing for Worlds, Karash and the Asian Milkman, those guys really sat down with me at 3 a.m. nights, theory crafting, battling, all kinds of stuff. Those guys are awesome. But aside from that, shout out to my crew that I went to GoFest with on Saturday, especially Rory. She was a big part of me actually being able to get out to Chicago. And the entirety of Pogo RVA, you guys are all awesome.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the really great discussion, and I look forward to seeing your names in future season championships. And thank you again very much for your time.
Thank you, man. This is really fun.